neurologist from East Central Hospital, Stony, and to lecture about chronic headaches and sleep disorders. You're welcome.
Thank you. So good morning again, dear colleagues. My name is Katerina, and I'm a neurologist, and my special interest is in headache disorders and sleep. So first of all, here are my disclosures. My biggest disclosure actually is that before I started treating patients, I was a neuroscientist, although I didn't get my PhD though. Today I'm going to talk about disordered sleep as a factor for headache chronification. So we know that there are episodic headaches which in time may evolve to chronic headaches. And chronic headache is a both personal and public health problem. It's very costly. My second topic today is medication overuse headache and its connection to sleep and hypnotic medications. And as the last part of my presentation, I'm going to present a case of a female patient. So why is chronic headache important? So the individual and socioeconomic burden of chronic headaches is substantial. These patients obviously use more healthcare resources, and in addition to that, these people are significantly less productive at work. So they might be employed, but they take often sickness absence, and their productivity at work is maybe not that optimal due to chronic headache. So considering epidemiology, it has been estimated in population studies that prevalence of chronic daily headache with various etiologies might be around 3%. And these are patients who have really everyday headache. Of course, chronic headache is not only everyday headache. We consider chronic headache as a diagnosis if the patient has at least 15 headache days per month, and if he or she has had them for at least 3 months. What's more important is that medication consumption is significantly higher in this patient population than in episodic headache patients, and which means this vicious cycle is already contained in these medication overuse. And additional factors that chronic headache and its comorbidities are probably underdiagnosed and undertreated. It's also a problem of neurologists and not only general practitioners. Even neurologists diagnose chronic migraine not always correctly. You can see in 36% of cases, according to Camille study, and in only 16% of cases do these patients get the correct diagnosis by a non-headache specialist. So the chronification or progressing of episodic headaches to chronic is a well-known clinical phenomenon. Of course, we know that not always does the chronic headache evolve from episodic. Sometimes the headache can be chronic from the beginning. There are headache types, such as new onset daily chronic headache, which can be chronic from the first day on, but it's not the rule. It's an exception. Usually the progression takes place over years and even decades, and usually these patients who have progressed from episodic to chronic headache have been using and overusing medications also for years and have been medicating themselves. It has been well studied that main factors which lead to chronification of primary headaches are disordered sleep, overuse of various medications, and I'd like to stress that there are not only analgesic medications that are overused, it's also sedative hypnotics, it's also caffeine, also alcohol, which is often, so these patients tend to have psychiatric comorbidities as well. It has been reported that higher levels of stress will probably play a role here, obesity and other factors. So what do we mean by disordered sleep? If we take a look at the international classification of sleep disorders. Insomnia is probably the most frequently occurring sleep disorder. This prevalence has been estimated to be around 30% in the general population. And sleep disordered breathing, including sleep apnea, is the second most frequent sleep disorder type occurring in the general population, and which has strong connections to obesity, cardiovascular comorbidity, and so on. And these disorders are probably also underdiagnosed. Not only in our country, but I think in other regions as well. So what are the mechanisms, or what are the regions connected to regulations, the regulation of sleep and headache? We know that hypothalamus is probably the region which plays a role both in regulation of sleep and dysregulation of sleep, and as well as it is a factor in many primary headaches. We know that many headaches are probably chronobiological disorders, such as migraine. Migraine has well-known connections to circadian rhythms, and also cluster headache, which is a rarely occurring disorder. It is also probably a chronobiological disorder by nature, and hypothalamus is involved in the regulation of, or in the occurrence of those types of primary headache. We know that posterior and lateral hypothalamus contain hypocretin or orexinergic neurons, which produce orexin, which is the main mediator promoting wakefulness. Probably you have all heard about narcolepsy. Narcolepsy type 1 is the disorder in which orexinergic neurons are destroyed by autoimmune mechanisms, and people with orexin deficit develop severe sleep attacks. But orexin not only regulates sleep, it also regulates mood, metabolism, and other functions. It has been shown already in the 1990s that by brain imaging studies, functional studies, that there is an activation of posterior hypothalamus in cluster headache attacks, and activation of brainstem regions in migraine attacks. These have been pioneering studies that have really shown the role of these brain regions in these disorders. So there's a really vicious cycle which connects chronic headache and disturbed sleep. First of all, we know that for many patients who suffer from headache, from episodic headaches, sleep is often seen as an escape from a headache attack. But the reality is that in most cases, headache itself precludes these people from going to sleep, and sleep disturbance occurs, which further promotes chronification of insomnia. We know that in epidemiological studies, insomnia is very strongly associated with chronic headache occurrence, and in turn, sleep deprivation is a common factor named by migraine patients, which triggers migraine attacks in about a quarter of these patients. In some patients, interestingly, excessive sleep or so-called oversleeping, for example, on weekends, triggers attacks also in a minority of patients, which means that there probably is something in the circadian dysregulations in these persons. It's not only sleep duration probably, but also the sleep phase in which migraine attack starts. You probably know that many migraine patients awaken from headache, which is quite typical to migraine. And probably there are behavioral mechanisms contributing to chronification of both sleep and headache disorders. Persons who suffer from headache and consequent insomnia start sometimes consuming excessive amounts of pain medications, excessive amounts of hypnotic medications. There's sometimes alcohol intake, excessive time spent in bed in hope for falling asleep. So we cannot underestimate the significance of psychological factors in the chronification of headache. We also know that for attention-type headache, insomnia is a strong negative predictive factor. Specifically, persons who sleep less amount of hours, wake unrefreshed, and are fatigued during the daytime are in the risk group of chronification of attention-type headache. And chronic attention-type headache is one of the most difficult headache types to treat. I think most neurologists know that. Chronic migraine is difficult enough, but chronic attention-type headache is even more difficult. So what can we as medical professionals do? Well, the headache is not chronified yet. So what can we do for patients who have frequent episodic headaches? I think the first and foremost is to inform the patients about their condition and about the dangers of medication overuse. It is estimated that it is the most powerful single factor to prevent chronification of headaches. It's informing the patient about the consequences, and even public health campaigns have been conducted, and they have been very successful. Sometimes it is as simple as telling the patient overusing medications is dangerous. Sometimes it's sufficient, but oftentimes it's not. And we're going to talk about it later. First, we have to advise the patients about lifestyle modifications, and it is advisable to initiate prophylactic headache therapy as soon as possible and to minimize the intake of acutely taken medications, since in many patients they become less effective in time. So the headache diary is absolutely a must in those patient populations, because it is the only way to measure the effect of treatment or measure the effect of any intervention for that matter. I would like to stress that screening and treatment of sleep disorders, especially insomnia, is meaningful and advisable in these patients, because it's probably not effective to deal with the consequence of chronic headache only without addressing the sleep problem first. It doesn't work that way, that we focus on chronic headache only and we don't address sleep. Because probably many patients with chronic headache have comorbid insomnia, and they will probably benefit from CBT, from mindfulness-based therapies, from sleep counseling, from stopping or withdrawing the hypnotic medications. And these, in turn, will potentially make or facilitate the treatment of their headache disorder as well. So if we take a look at diagnostic criteria of chronic migraine, it's a migraine type headache which occurs on 15 or more days per month, for more than 3 months, of which at least 8 days per month have the features of migraine headache, either with or without aura. So chronic migraine evolves from episodic migraine most often, but sometimes, as I mentioned, the migraine can be chronic from the beginning. We can diagnose chronic migraine if the headache frequency has been 15 days or more for at least 3 months. Chronic attention-type headache is a disorder evolving from frequent episodic attention-type headache, which clinical picture is different from migraine. There are less triggering factors. The headache tends to be more of dull quality, more diffuse, involves more muscle tension, more trigger points, and these patients are extremely difficult to treat. I would even say, in my personal opinion, these are the most difficult patient population to treat globally. So the title of this session is Primary Headache Disorders, but I would like to stress one particular headache disorder, which is actually a secondary headache, which evolves in time as a consequence of overuse of headache medications, which is medication overuse headache, or MOH. The criteria of MOH are headache occurring on 15 or more days per month, and there's also the additional criterion of overusing the medications, overusing pain medications or triptans or sedative hypnotics or barbiturates or whatever, or at least 15 days per month. Of course, for triptans, the criterion is at least 10 days per month because triptans are considered more dangerous in terms of medication overuse headache. It needs to be stressed that MOH doesn't occur on itself. It occurs on a pre-existing, in addition to pre-existing primary headache condition. And how the patients describe it, they describe the MOH type of headache as a different or a new onset of headache. The MOH headache is different from what they have been experienced before, whether migraines or with the tension type headache. MOH tends to be also dull, bilateral, and it often can occur every day. It's a chronic daily headache, and it accompanies chronic daily intake of medications. So it's a form of secondary headache, and patients can still have attacks of migraine or attacks of tension type headache as well. So it is correct in a patient in whom the criteria of MOH are fulfilled. It is actually correct also to diagnose the pre-existing disorder as well. So we have to diagnose the chronic migraine or the chronic tension type headache as well. Because if we succeed in withdrawing the overuse medication, we still need to deal with chronic migraine or chronic tension type headache after that. MOH is an underdiagnosed disorder. It is severely confusing for both patients and the practitioners. It is a difficult concept to explain to the patients that the medications that initially relieve headache become ineffective with time. There is a certain phenotype or risk factor profile. MOH patients tend to be female patients of older age who have been using headache medications for years or decades. They tend to have a lower level of education, tend to be unemployed. And of course, polypharmacy, they have other comorbidities as well, and including overuse of sedative hypnotic medications. So not only analgesics, but also sedative hypnotics can promote the chronification of headache and MOH. It is a widely discussed topic why other conditions which require daily medication intake, such as osteoarthritis, for example, or rheumatoid arthritis, why these do not lead to MOH usually. Probably there is something specific about headache patients. Probably it's an underlying or genetic factors which lead to headache chronification in migraine and tension type headache patients. And treatment strategies which are normally used in other chronic pain syndromes, such as complex regional pain syndrome or other chronic pain, they may not be appropriate for the management of patients with MOH. So the first and foremost action that we need to do with these patients is to inform them about the dangers of medication overuse and to offer detoxification strategies. And it's a point of discussion really how to detoxify these patients. There are several protocols available and several methods to do that. So the patients in whom we don't suspect opioids or sedative hypnotic addiction probably can be detoxified in an outpatient basis. But my experience suggests that if a patient is not so stable or has several comorbidities or is not able to withdraw medications for him or herself, it is advisable to do this in inpatient settings where we can apply also psychological counseling and things like that. And this inpatient period doesn't have to be very long. It can be as short as 5 days. Of course, the whole process is not ended there. There needs to be a follow-up, there needs to be counseling, there needs to be an ongoing addressing of the underlying headache disorder as well. The slide that I skipped previously is the risk of MOH with different medication classes. And I would like to stress here that the risk of MOH appears to be highest, with different combinations of paracetamol and opioids, aspirin and caffeine, and sort of combination medications is the key word here. The risk of triptans is considered high. Risk with triptans is considered high by some experts, by intermediate by some. And NSAIDs is probably the group of medications with the lowest risk of headache complication. So the prognosis of MOH patients is variable. Most patients who have undergone detoxification or withdrawal protocol relapse in the first year after withdrawal. It's not very surprising. The overall treatment effect or the treatment success is estimated to be about 72%. And the treatment success doesn't necessarily mean that these patients are headache-free, because as I already stressed, the aim of our treatment is to withdraw the appended medications. The patients are still dealing with their primary headache disorder after that, and we need to address that. So they don't become completely headache-free after that. We need to treat them still, but the treatment success in MOH is defined usually as the success of medication withdrawal. There are several predictors of unfavorable treatment outcome, which includes high frequency of primary headache attacks, triptan overuse, and a greater degree of headache-related disability at the time of MOH diagnosis. And this again needs to be stressed here that patients with underlying tension-type headache are more difficult to treat once they develop MOH. So next I want to present you a case of a female patient that I treated when I was a resident neurologist. I was still a resident in training. It was a 74-year-old female patient who was a retired teacher, and she had several years, and her medical history included several years of different headaches for which she regularly used emergency department services or ambulance services. Sometimes her headaches were accompanied by different neurological symptoms. And at this time that I met her, she had a very severe headache with vision blurring. She was performed a head CT with suspicion of stroke, but no acute brain pathology was suspected. There was some kind of a neurological symptomatology in this patient. She had a slight hemihypesthesia, did not look to the left, so there was a suspicion of vascular problem initially. She was admitted to a neurological department, and then we started to, her previous medical history and the history of medication overuse really started to roll there. She had had sleep disturbance for years, and she had been overusing alprazolam for at least 1.5 up to 1.625 milligrams daily, for which she had already developed memory problems, gait problems, and so on. She had concomitant hypertension. She had experienced TIA in the left carotid system, and probably there was also some kind of concomitant, well, not maybe anorexia, but some restrictive behaviors towards food, and she was taking medication as she saw it herself, so it was not a very compliant patient. She had seen a headache specialist before, and it was concluded there that there are at least two types of headache there. One type, which is associated with rising blood pressure, but could be, attributed to medication overuse. The second type of headache, unilateral, starting from the occipital region, sometimes bilateral, accompanied by blurred vision, which could be attributed to glaucoma maybe. It had been noted by the headache specialist that this patient has also dissociative features sometimes, and that when in pain, so the patient always took analgesics. And she had been taking alprazolam for some time already. So the conclusion was that the migraine criteria were not fulfilled, although probably it had evolved, medication overuse headache had evolved from chronic migraine in this patient, and medication overuse headache is predominant, and the neurologist had suspected that there might be also a role for glaucoma. We know that glaucoma might sometimes exacerbate or pre-existing headaches, and the tricyclic antidepressants are probably contraindicated in these patients. Suggestions and advice were given to this patient, but she wasn't very compliant again. So what we tried to do with her is we stopped alprazolam, we stopped NSAIDs quite abruptly, and I want to stress again that this can be quite dangerous if you do it abruptly. So you better have some kind of a plan how to deal with withdrawal reactions. So this patient had some hallucinations in the first 2 days. So if you stop sedative hypnotics abruptly, you need to do this in inpatient setting. But the hallucinations resolved quickly, and we also offered her. We started a course of intravenous prednisolone, which we tapered off during the 5 days, and the preventative medication with valproate was started. And the patient was quite soon discharged home in good conditions. She was instructed to taper off oral prednisolone, and she was instructed to take valproic acid for another 6 months. So at the follow-up, she had no neurological findings. She had mild headache symptoms. The headache had gradually become not so frequent. She experienced 3 to 4 days per month, and she was taking valproic acid as was instructed. She didn't take any more NSAIDs or benzodiazepines, but was not motivated to go to psychotherapy or to go to exercise, but still it was a treatment success. Another thing that I wanted to show you as an end of this presentation is the statistics of medication use in Estonia. This blue line here is the consumption of combination of opioids with non-opioid analgesics. So most of this is comprised by paracetamol and codeine and other combination analgesics which contain opioids. As you can see, the consumption of this type of medications is on the rise heavily. Other opioids, consumption of other opioids has been quite stable. And in parallel with that, we can see that the consumption of sedatives and hypnotics has also been slowly but steadily rising in Estonia, at least until the year 2017. This is statistics for Estonia, but you can probably look up similar data for your countries as well. I'm not sure if there's any connection or positive link between these two, but it's just food for thought. I would like to conclude my presentation with the fact that probably the relationship between sleep disorder and chronic headache is bidirectional. There's a vicious cycle of disordered sleep and chronification of headaches. Prevention of headache chronification is extremely important because the disability in chronic headache patients is very considerable. Medication overuse headache is a form of secondary headache, which involves in patients who have a pre-existing migraine or tension type headache. And withdrawal of the overuse medication is the only way to help MOH patients. So thank you for your attention.
Alice, any question from the floor? Yeah.
Well, I can just shove it.
1 second.
A comment about treatment for both the sleep disorder and chronic daily headache is that problem, but it reduces the monthly incidence of attacks. Did they use that along with, as you say, detoxification? Because usually there's a combination of several things going on at the same time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Thank you for this comment. I absolutely agree that normalization of sleep and wakefulness cycle is central in these patients. They oftentimes have also significant psychiatric comorbidity, and I think we cannot. The management of these patients needs to be multi-professional. There needs to be a clinical psychologist, physiotherapist, other specialists needed. The pain and sleep management need to go hand in hand. And yes, your second comment is absolutely correct. There is an option of monoclonal antibody treatment as a preventative medication for migraine, but unfortunately it doesn't help the patients who have chronic tension type headache because it's a specific treatment for migraine only. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrin. Very interesting presentation. I have to say that I'm not very familiar with headaches, but can you give a comment? How does affect screen time near the TV or computer and so on? Is there any link between chronic headaches?
I'm not aware of any studies where screen time would be identified as a risk factor for chronification of headaches. What it certainly does, it's common sense that the more screen time you have, the probably more disturbed is your sleep. And if the sleep is disturbed, again, it's quite probable that if you have a pre-existing headache disorder, it might lead to chronification of this headache. So, but the direct link between screen time and headache, to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any of those studies.
So it's not so much Netflix at night.